This happened just a few weeks ago. I had been living in my downtown apartment for over a year now, enjoying the solitude after a chaotic time at work. I had my laptop open, surrounded by sketches and ideas, ready to dive into a long night of design. The rain was pounding against the windows, a steady rhythm that made everything feel peaceful at first. I thought I would get a lot done that night, but I've never stopped thinking about what came next. Around 9 o'clock, I heard a strange thumping noise from above me. I figured it was just the building settling. After all, it was an older place. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The sound grew louder and more erratic. I tried to focus, but the tapping was distracting. Maybe it was just my neighbor moving furniture? I kept glancing up at the ceiling, waiting for the sound to stop, but it didn't. Then, I heard voices, soft murmurs echoing through the ceiling. They were unintelligible but seemed urgent. My heart began to race. I stood up and walked around my cramped apartment, trying to find a distraction. I thought about knocking on my neighbor's door or calling them, but when I looked at the clock, it was past 10. Was it too late? I peered out the window. The rain blurred the world outside. I felt a chill sweep across my skin. Later I noticed something dripping from my light fixture. At first I thought it was just a water leak from the roof, but as I got closer, I saw that the water droplets were too dark, tinged with a murky hue. Panic set in. My instinct was to turn back, but something urged me to check upstairs. I grabbed my flashlight and hesitated at the door. I wasn't sure what I would find. I walked up the narrow stairwell to the second floor. The thumping sounds had stopped, replaced by an eerie silence. I knocked softly on the door to the apartment above me. I didn't get an answer. I knocked again, louder this time. Still nothing. I turned the knob, surprised when it opened. The apartment looked exactly like mine, messy, cluttered, and dark. It felt as though I had stepped into a parallel version of my own space. Then, out of nowhere, I felt a gust of wind slam the door behind me. I turned around quickly. I saw a shadow in the corner, just standing there, watching me. I asked if anyone was there. There was no answer, just a whisper of rain from behind the walls. My heart was racing. I turned back to the door, ready to escape. But when I turned the knob, the door wouldn't budge. It was locked from the other side. My breath quickened. I banged on the door, shouting for help. I couldn't find my phone. Panic rushed through me as the shadow moved slightly, but it didn't come closer. I backed up, searching for a way out. The whispers in the walls began to rise, melding into a chaotic symphony around me. I knew with every pounding drop of rain that I was trapped in someone else's nightmare. Or maybe mine. The silence in the apartment felt suffocating. I stood frozen, adrenaline pulsing through me. The shadow didn't move, but I sensed it watching, waiting for something. I needed to think. I scanned the room for any clues, any signs of life or a path to freedom. The walls were lined with photographs, blurred faces, a couple smiling together under a blue sky. My stomach turned thinking about who might live here, and why their space was so eerily similar to mine. I took a cautious step back, my flashlight beam guiding the way. It flickered and then flickered out, leaving me plunged into darkness. The whispers intensified, echoing through the small space. I pressed my back against the wall, hoping to blend into the shadows myself. That's when I noticed it. A faint glimmer beneath the kitchen table. My feet moved of their own accord. I crouched low, heart racing, and peered beneath the table. There lay a small object, partially hidden by a stack of old newspapers. I reached for it, fingers trembling. It was a key. The realization hit me like a wave. This could be my way out. I pocketed the key, glancing back toward the shadow. It appeared closer now, but whether from a change in the distance or my own terror, I couldn't tell. I had to stay focused. I tiptoed back to the door, gripping the key tightly. My pulse quickened at the thought of freedom. What if it worked? What if it didn't? I inserted the key into the lock with shaking hands. It fit. With a deep breath, I turned it slowly, the mechanism clicking to life. In that moment, I felt a surge of hope, mingled with a complicating fear. The door creaked open, and I prepared to bolt. But the shadow shifted all at once, stepping into the flashlight's weak beam. I stumbled backward, my breath catching. The figure was a woman, her features drawn and gaunt, eyes wide with something like desperation. "Help me," she whispered, reaching out as if she were trying to pull herself together. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, my voice barely audible over the whispering walls. She opened her mouth to answer, but just then, a loud crash echoed from somewhere deeper in the apartment. The floor shook, and a dark figure lunged from the shadows behind the woman. I jumped back, startled by the sudden movement. Before I could react, the woman was yanked back into the dark. A chilling scream echoed within the apartment, and the oppressive atmosphere cracked like thunder. The door slammed shut behind me, sealing me back in darkness. I pounded on the door, yelling for help, but my voice felt swallowed by the growing quiet. All I had was the key. I couldn't think straight. I had to leave. I had to know what was happening. But as I pulled the key from my pocket, the whispered chaos around me settled into a harrowing silence that made every hair on my body stand at attention. I realized then that escaping wouldn't be as simple as turning the key or running out. There was something far more sinister at play. Taking a deep breath, I held the key tightly, ready to confront whatever waited for me on the other side. The walls felt like they were closing in, but I needed to move forward. The rain beat down harder outside, and I knew I had to make a choice. Then, as if in response to my thoughts, a low growl echoed from the shadowed corners of the apartment, chilling me to my core. The growl echoed again, low and menacing, sending a jolt through my body. My instincts screamed at me to flee, but I was paralyzed by fear. The key felt heavy in my hand, a burden I didn't want to carry anymore. I had to make a move. With shaky legs, I thrust the door open and stepped into the narrow hall. The air buzzed with a strange energy. My flashlight flickered to life, the beam barely illuminating the peeling wallpaper and broken tiles beneath my feet. Each step felt like a gamble with fate. I didn't know where I was going. I only knew that staying in that room was not an option. I glanced back, half expecting to see the woman re-emerging from the shadows. But the apartment lay silent, the only sound the rain hammering against the windows. I pressed forward. Turning the corner, I found a small staircase leading down. I was drawn to it, perhaps out of desperation. Maybe there was a way out down there, or at least fewer shadows. I descended slowly, the wood creaking beneath me. Each step brought a mixture of dread and anticipation. At the bottom, I found myself in a dimly lit basement. The air was damp and cold. Old furniture was strewn about. Creaking pipes whispered secrets in the corners. My flashlight flickered again, casting long shadows that danced against the walls. Then, I saw it. A small window set high up on the far wall, barely big enough for a child to crawl through. I rushed toward it, breath quickening. As I peered out, my heart sank. The rain pooled at the bottom, muddy and deep. Even if I managed to squeeze through, getting away wouldn't be easy. I turned back, frustration gnawing at me. My eyes caught another glimmer among the clutter. I stepped closer and found a piece of paper half hidden beneath an old shoe. I picked it up and felt a chill as I unfolded it. It was a photo, dark and faded, of the same woman who had pleaded for help. But in this picture, she didn't look frightened. She looked furious, her face twisted in rage. Was she trying to tell me something? I tucked the picture into my pocket, wanting answers but not knowing how to find them. Just then, a soft rustle caught my attention from one of the corners of the basement. My flashlight jumped to the sound, illuminating a figure huddled beneath a tattered blanket. "Please don't be scared," a small voice croaked, hoarse and trembling. I froze. Another victim? My throat tightened. "Who are you?" I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady. The blanket shifted and a pair of frightened eyes peeked out at me. "I'm just hiding. He won't find me here." A shiver ran down my spine at the mention of he. I took a cautious step back, the growl echoing in my mind. I had to find a way out. Now. Before I could respond, the walls shuddered, and the lights flickered violently. The basement filled with an unnatural dark. A wave of dread washed over me as the low growl returned, louder this time, wrapping around us like a tight noose. I looked back at the child, realizing that we weren't alone anymore. Something sinister was closing in. The growl escalated, vibrating through the air like thunder. Panicked, I spun around, scanning the dark corners of the basement, my flashlight beam quivering. The child's wide eyes mirrored my fear, and I could see him clutching the blanket as though it were a shield. "Stay quiet," I urged him, my voice barely a whisper. But before we could absorb what was happening, a crash echoed from somewhere deep within the basement, a sound of wood splintering, followed by heavy breathing that didn't belong to us. My heart raced. I didn't know what was in the shadows, but I felt it getting closer. "Is it him?" I asked the child, desperate for answers. He nodded slowly, tears glistening in his eyes. "He's coming. He always finds me." I glanced back at the small window, weighing my options. But I knew there was no way to reach it and escape in time. I was trapped. I had to do something. Tearing my focus away from my growing fear, I scanned the basement for anything I could use as a weapon. My eyes landed on an old metal pipe, rusted but sturdy. I grabbed it from among the debris, holding it tightly in my hand. That's when I saw it, a shadow moving along the wall low to the ground, creeping closer with an unsettling silence. My breath caught in my throat. We had only moments before whatever it was would reveal itself. "Can you hide?" I asked the boy, my voice firmer now. He shook his head violently. "No, please don't leave me." I felt a surge of protectiveness. There was no way I could abandon this child, but I had no plan. As the growl crescendoed, it seemed to pulse with the very heartbeat of the room. "Then stay behind me," I said. "We'll face it together." I edged toward the source of the sound, adrenaline kicking in. My flashlight flickered again, pushing shadows aside. I could see the corner of the basement more clearly now, revealing more discarded furniture and broken boxes. But the growl intensified, and I realized we didn't have much time. Then I saw a glimmer, a glint of something shiny reflecting in the light. It was another piece of the photograph, torn and muddy, just lying on the floor. I reached for it, instinctively feeling that whatever it held would explain why we were both down here, trapped. As I grabbed it, a loud crash thundered behind me. I spun around, the metal pipe raised as a barrier, but nothing prepared me for what stepped into the light. It was the woman from the photograph. Only this time, her face was twisted, not in anger, but with an unbearable sorrow. Her mouth moved, as if trying to speak, but no sound escaped. The growl resonated from her as if she were both the source and the victim. I recoiled, the photograph slipping through my fingers as reality warped before me. She pointed a trembling finger toward the darkness we had just come from, her eyes pleading for help, even as the growl enveloped us in its heavy grip. "Run!" I shouted to the child. But the moment my feet started to move, the lights went out completely. The basement was swallowed by darkness, and I felt the child's small hand slip from mine. In the pitch black, I could hear the growl intensifying, the oppressive darkness alive with menace. "No!" I screamed, my voice echoing into the void. I had to find him. I had to find a way out. But as I stumbled forward, ready to face the horror of the night, I realized something worse than fear was waiting for us in the shadows. I reached out blindly into the void, my heart racing faster than I could comprehend. "Where are you?" I cried into the darkness, hoping for a response that would anchor me. I strained to listen, fighting the instinct to retreat. In the stillness, I heard a soft whimper, a child's voice threading through the shadows. "I'm here." His voice was small and shaky, but it was enough to give me direction. I stumbled toward it, the floor uneven beneath my feet. "Hold on to me," I said, but there was no way to grab his hand in this darkness. I had to rely on his voice alone. Each step felt like a leap of faith. Suddenly the growl erupted again, deeper this time, reverberating off the basement walls. It felt like it was right behind me, a hot breath at my neck. I froze, panic flooding my veins. If I stayed still, maybe it wouldn't find me. "Just run!" I heard the boy shout, his innocence fighting against the fear that surrounded us. I couldn't let him down. I took a deep breath, steadied myself, and bolted in the direction of his voice. "Come on, this way." I heard the child call out, the faint beam of light from my flashlight illuminating just enough of his terrified face to guide me. I dashed forward, almost stumbling over the debris that littered the ground. Then, without warning, the ground beneath me shifted. The wood creaked ominously as I stepped onto an unstable board. I barely steadied myself as the board snapped beneath my weight, sending a jolt of fear through me. I was losing ground. "Please!" the child's voice cried out, and I turned just in time to see him retreat deeper into the darkness. "Help! I can't see!" A whimper tore from my throat. I didn't have time to think, to worry. I sprinted toward him, fighting against the instinct to look back at the growl now echoing in the corners of my mind. The shadows felt alive, closing in on us. "Stay close," I yelled, my voice louder now, desperate to cut through the fear. Then, something icy brushed against my arm and I nearly screamed. I glanced down, expecting to find the tendrils of darkness reaching for me, but there was nothing there, just another shadow passing by, or perhaps the reflection of my fears. Fragmented memories flooded my mind. I thought of the photograph, of the woman's face twisted with sorrow. Why was she here? What did her presence mean? My chest tightened as I realized I needed more than just a way out. I needed answers. "We have to find a way up," I shouted, trying to rally my thoughts. The staircase. It had to be somewhere nearby. "Look for the stairs." He nodded, and together we stumbled through the darkness, calling each other's names, trying to close the distance. Just then, a loud crash exploded in the corner of the room, reverberating through the air. "What was that?" the boy cried, his voice like a gust of wind, shaking with fear. I felt every muscle tense, my heart thrumming in my ears. "I don't know. Just keep moving." The growl returned, harsher and thicker than before, making my skin crawl. There was something else, a whisper, barely audible, like a warning dancing at the edges of my perception. I strained to hear, "Help me. Help me." And as I turned in the direction of that sound, I realized it wasn't a voice of desperation. It was something darker. I swallowed hard, dread wrapping around me like a vice. We were not alone anymore. "Stay close," I instructed again, my voice barely above a whisper now. My flashlight flickered, the beam sputtering, casting eerie shadows that danced around us. In that moment, I thought I saw her face again, this time clearer, almost closer. It wasn't just sorrow that filled her eyes. It was a desperate warning. Just beyond the edge of darkness, footsteps echoed softly, making my skin prickle. They were not our own. "What is happening?" I thought, a new fear gripping me. I had to get us out. But as the shadows grew thicker, I knew we were just moments away from whatever waited beyond them. Something far more sinister than I could have ever imagined. The darkness pressed in on us, thick and suffocating. I could barely see the contours of the room, yet I felt a shift, something lurking just out of view. I hated being trapped like this. My breath came in short gasps, barely able to steady myself. "Where are the stairs?" the boy whimpered, his voice trembling and small against the oppressive silence. I wished I knew. My flashlight flickered again, the beam splashing light over crumbling walls and broken furniture, creating grotesque shadows that seemed to mock us. "They have to be here. They must be," I replied, but my voice lacked the confidence I wanted to convey. The growl returned, a low rumble that resonated in my chest. Panic made my heart race. I couldn't let it claim us. "Stay close to me," I called out, but the urgency in my voice must have added to his fear. I could hear him sob softly in the distance. "Please," he cried. "I can't." "Keep talking. Just keep talking," I shouted, desperate to pull him back from the brink of total panic. "Tell me your name." "Ben," he shouted. "I'm Ben." "Okay, Ben, I'm right here." My hand brushed against something cold and wet and I recoiled. A scream lodged in my throat. It was only a damp wall. I steadied myself. No time for fear. If I was going to save him, I couldn't let this darkness consume us. Suddenly I heard another sound, a child's laughter echoing through the basement. It sent chills down my spine. It was wrong. "Ben?" I called, knowing deep down that it wasn't him. The voice was too cheerful, too playful for this terrifying place. "Ben, where are you?" I squinted into the shadows, my heart racing. I stumbled toward where I last heard him. "Stay close!" But he wasn't there. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. My flashlight flickered again, the light barely illuminating what looked like a small figure at the edge of the beam. A child. But was it really Ben? "Help me," the voice urged, a mocking echo of the real Ben's plea. "Ben!" I yelled, panic laced with despair. I turned sharply, searching for my own child, my heart pounding. It was too much. I didn't know where to look. That's when I saw it. A dark shape skirting along the far wall, creeping toward the flickering staircase. My throat constricted. The laughter turned to whispers, a cacophony of voices overlapping, invading my mind. "Help me. Please help me." I strained to hear, suddenly lost in the echoes of those desperate words. I took a step back and my foot hit something solid, and I stumbled. The figure in front of me moved closer, and I could see a small face now, but it wasn't Ben. There was an unnatural brightness in its eyes. "Let me go!" I yelled, scrambling backward, praying for the real Ben to call out. "Help me!" At that moment the walls seemed to pulse, and I felt the cold rush of air. Shadows reached for me, fingers of darkness trying to pull me in. With a surge of adrenaline, I turned and ran. I didn't look back. My legs carried me instinctively toward where the stairs should be, but as I hurtled forward, the laughter crescendoed, blending seamlessly with a low growl that resonated through the air. I pushed through the lingering shadows, feeling a surge of hope. There had to be a way out. But as I reached the staircase, a voice gasped, "You shouldn't have come here." My breath hitched. I had no idea what waited above, but I knew it was only beginning. I didn't pause to reflect as I raced toward the stairs. My heart hammered in my chest, loud enough that it drowned out the whispers echoing in the basement. The air was thick, almost as if it were trying to hold me back. Each step felt like a battle, my instincts screaming to flee. Yet the thought of Ben kept me pushing forward. When I finally reached the staircase, I could barely see the next step. I fumbled around, feeling the rough edges of the wooden stairs beneath my fingertips. They were damp, slick, with an unknown moisture. "Ben!" I shouted again, my voice echoing off the walls. "I need you to come to me." A flash of fear gripped me. What if he was lost? What if he couldn't hear me? I pressed my hand against the wall for support, my palms sliding against the cold surface. I was about to call for him again when I heard something shift behind me. A soft thud, almost like footsteps. My blood ran cold. I spun, face tinged with terror. "Let's play." The voice floated toward me, a sing-song tone that took my breath away. It was the same cheerful laughter from before, but now it rang with a sinister edge that sent chills racing down my spine. "Who's there?" I demanded, trying to sound braver than I felt. Silence swallowed my words, and the laughter faded into soft giggles. I stepped into the darkness, keeping my flashlight steady, my hands shaking. That's when I saw movement. A shadow darted across the far corner of the basement, then disappeared. I chased after it, fueled by panic and the need to find Ben. "Ben, please, say something." I stumbled over broken furniture, the splintered wood digging into my skin as I fell. I pushed myself up, ignoring the pain, my eyes locked on the corner where the shadow had vanished. "If you're here, show yourself," I shouted. Suddenly the air shifted. I could feel a rush, like a breeze that didn't belong. The outlines of the basement blurred, and I staggered back as reality twisted. I blinked, trying to gather my senses, and when I opened my eyes again, I could see. The stairs were gone. The realization crashed over me like a wave. I was trapped. An icy wave of fear gripped me. "What is happening?" I muttered, breathless. I felt a pull towards the center of the room, something calling to me. I refused to move. I wouldn't let it take me. I focused instead on where I last heard Ben's voice. "Ben!" I shouted one last time. The air vibrated with silence, as if the whole world was holding its breath. Then there it was again. "Let's play." A shudder traveled through me, It was closer this time, accompanied by the scent of damp earth and decay. I couldn't see anything, yet I felt eyes on me, watching from the shadows. I stepped back, retreating from the unseen presence, my mind racing. What should I do? There had to be a way out, but all I could think about was Ben. Heart racing, I took a deep breath and scanned the room. The shadows seemed to coil around me, closing in tighter as I tightened my grip on the flashlight. Just then, I noticed a small gleam on the ground, a broken mirror, fracturing the darkness. I knelt down, hoping it might help. But as I looked closer, my heart sank. Reflected in the glass was a glimpse of something behind me. A figure, tall and indistinct, looming closer. The shadows writhed as I turned slowly, dread pooling in my stomach, and then everything went black. I gasped as the darkness enveloped me. The absence of light was suffocating. My heart pounded, and I stumbled backward, but my heel caught on something, sending me crashing to the floor. The cold concrete bit into my skin, but the pain barely registered. I was focused on the threat looming nearby. "Ben!" I shouted again, panic clawing at my throat. I pushed myself up, desperate to find anything, anyone. The oppressive silence felt like a heavy blanket pressing down on me. Then, as if answering the void, the sing-song voice returned. "Let's play!" It echoed through the basement, now twisted and distorted, the cheerful facade long gone. My breaths came in short gasps, and I wished I could see. "Get away from me!" I yelled, my voice trembling. I dared to swing my flashlight in the direction of the voice, the beam cutting through the darkness, but all I found were empty corners and scattered debris. Just as the beam illuminated the mirror fragments scattered across the floor, I felt a chill slide down my spine. Something was watching me. I turned to face the corner where I felt the presence lurking, my flashlight casting shaky beams across the walls. "Show yourself," I demanded. The shadows quivered as if they were alive, swirling tighter around me. The laughter morphed into a mocking whisper, filling the space with dread. I took another cautious step forward, toeing cautiously over the broken glass. "Ben, please, where are you?" My voice cracked, and I fought back tears. I couldn't let fear overtake me. Not now. Suddenly, the air shifted again, the temperature dropping sharply. A draft billowed past me, almost tangible as it twisted around my legs. I squeezed my eyes shut, fighting against the gripping darkness. When I opened them again, there it was. A soft glow in the distance. I had to get to it. My instincts screamed for flight, but I moved forward, willing myself to keep my flashlight steady. Each step felt like wading through thick mud, heavy and slow. As I drew closer to the glow, I realized it wasn't just any light. It had an otherworldly shimmer, pulsating rhythmically like a heartbeat. "Ben?" I called once more, straining to hear any response. But the glow remained silent, pulsing hypnotically, drawing me in. What if it was a trap? What if it was the thing playing with me? But I had no choice. The thought of Ben kept urging me forward. I couldn't turn back now. As I reached the edge of the light, I blinked in confusion. The glow illuminated a doorway, its outline flickering at the edges like a candle flame. I hesitated, uncertainty gnawing at me. I could feel the air shift one last time. A whisper brushed my ear, carrying a chilling warning. "Don't go in." Before I could react, the shadows surged towards me, moving faster than I could run. The doorway hovered just in reach, yet the darkness was relentless, wrapping around me like a suffocating shroud. I felt an icy grip on my arm, yanking me backward. In a split second I was swept from the glow, the darkness roaring around me, drowning out my screams. The last thing I saw was the radiant doorway disappearing as I was pulled back into the void. I woke up gasping, my heart racing, disoriented on the cold basement floor. It took a moment for the darkness to fade from my vision, but the weight of dread settled back in almost immediately. I tried to piece together what had just happened. The glow, the voice, the icy grip. It all felt like a nightmare. I pushed myself up, wincing at the sharpness of the glass pieces under my palm. I could still hear the echo of laughter in my ears, taunting me. Determined not to let fear take hold, I took a breath and tried to steady myself. I needed to find Ben. Ben! I called again, forcing the words past my locked throat. This time I listened for any reply, my flashlight shaking in my hands. The basement, once a familiar place, felt like a maze of shadows. I took a deep breath and walked deeper into the oppressive dark. As I moved cautiously, my light flickered on and off, its beam growing weaker with every step. Panic clawed at me, threatening to spiral out of control as I pointed the light around, searching for anything to grasp onto. Then I spotted something glinting in the distant gloom. Cautiously, I went toward it, avoiding the broken glass. As I got closer, I realized it was a broken mirror, shards reflecting tiny slivers of my fading light. That's when I saw it. A shadow shifted behind me, moving just at the edge of my vision. I froze, slowly turning back, but found nothing. Just the heavy silence of the basement. Get a grip, I muttered under my breath. I needed to stay focused. I couldn't be afraid. Fear wouldn't help find Ben. I continued searching through the basement. Boxes littered the floor, some open and spilling their contents. I rifled through them, my hands trembling. Old clothes, books, nothing useful. But then I came across an old photo album. Flipping it open, I saw smiling faces, snapshots of memories, my family, my childhood. But one picture caught my breath. Ben and I at a park, obviously taken years ago. I traced his smiling face with my finger, yearning for those carefree days. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the darkness. My heart lurched, and I nearly dropped the album. I turned, aiming my flashlight in the direction of the noise. Ben, I called out, but my voice sounded small and weak. Another crash, this time louder, now accompanied by a terrible scratching sound, like nails on concrete. My stomach churned. I dropped the album and approached the noise, my legs almost giving way. The flashlight flickered again and I cursed under my breath as I tapped it. Please, I whispered, praying for it to stay lit. The scratching grew nearer. I could feel the cold air wrap around me once more, suffocating and thick. A low growl echoed from the shadows, sending goosebumps every inch of my skin. That was it. I had to get out. I turned on my heel, ready to bolt, but then I saw it. A flicker of movement near the far wall just beyond where the light reached. Someone, or something, was there, watching me. I stumbled back, ready to run, but my foot caught again, and I fell with a thud. The laughter returned, sharper this time, mingling with the growl, and I could feel it closing in. I took a shaky breath, heart racing, the shadows crawling closer. I had to make a choice, face whatever it was or give in to the darkness. But then, just as everything felt hopeless, I saw a glimmer of light. Not the flickering reflection I had chased, but a steady beam. Ben? I gasped, hope sparking against fear, but my words trembled with doubt. What if it was just another trick? A challenge waiting to be faced in this nightmare sanctuary? I scrambled toward the light, my breath coming in short bursts, the shadows swirling behind me as if they were alive. The steady beam beckoned, illuminating a figure approaching through the darkness. Hope surged in my chest as clarity began to wash over my fear. A familiar outline, moving with cautious steps. Ben! I shouted, my voice cutting through the cacophony of whispers that surrounded me. The shadows hesitated, as if they could sense my desperation, and then pulled back slightly, giving me a precious moment to reach the figure. As I closed the distance, I realized it indeed was Ben, relief flooding my veins. His wide eyes reflected the flickering flashlight, and I clutched his shoulders tightly, as if grounding him would anchor both of us in this nightmare. "Are you okay?" I forced myself to ask, brushing away irrational fears. The low growl echoed just out of sight, reminding me of the dread lurking behind us. "I was hiding," he murmured, trembling. "I thought he wouldn't find me." I could hear the fear in his voice, the raw edge that mirrored my own. "There's no time to hide anymore," I urged, my gaze darting back to the flickering light. "We have to go. Now." Together, we started walking, cautiously moving toward the beam that seemed to pulse with a strange warmth. Each step felt heavier than the last, the shadows snapping at our heels, the growls joining the chorus of whispers threads that swept around my mind, drowning my thoughts in chaos. "Don't let them take you," I whispered to Ben, squeezing his hand tightly. He nodded, his face pale, yet unwavering in the moment. The more we walked, the more the light flickered, as if sensing our approach. Its glow brightened intermittently, pushing the darkness back and illuminating fragments of a past I couldn't grasp. "Keep moving," I urged, sensing the urgency rising in my chest. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see the shadow chasing us, but those senses were muted, drowned by the pressure of urgency pressing against my chest. And just as we reached the cusp of the light, a sudden force swept through the basement, knocking us off our feet. I landed hard on the floor while Ben tumbled away from me. I heard his cry of surprise, the joy of light replaced by the desperate struggles against unseen forces. "Ben!" I shouted, scrambling toward him as shadows coiled around his small frame, dragging him into the darkness. "No!" I lunged forward, pain shooting through my arm as I reached for him. I felt a heat surge against my palm, a connection snapping like electricity between us. And just like that, he was pulled back toward me, crashing into my chest. In that single moment of connection, I saw it. The shadowy figure creeping closer, hungry eyes piercing through the veil of light, emanating dread. My heart raced, but I wrapped my arms tighter around Ben, shielding him as we staggered back, feet shifting beneath the weight of tangled shadows. "What is that?" he cried, pressing his face into my side, fear gripping him. I don't know," I gasped, battling the darkness that writhed around us. The malevolent force inched closer, tightening its grip. "We can't stay!" My mind raced, searching for a way out, for something, anything to loosen its hold on us. "Look!" Ben pointed ahead, voice trembling but insistent. There it was, a subtle shimmer just beyond the chaos, a faint outline of a door in the far wall, half hidden by debris and darkness. A thought sparked in my mind, igniting a flicker of hope. "It's a way out." "Run to it!" I shouted, urging us to break free from the shadows. Ben nodded, face determined despite the fear clinging to him like an unwanted cloak. We bolted toward the door, the weight of the shadow pressing down on us, the low growl rumbling like distant thunder. With each step, I could feel time condensing, the air thickening as we neared the opening. I could hear the growl escalating, angered at our defiance, the whispers clawing at my consciousness like 1,000 warnings. But we couldn't stop. We couldn't let the darkness consume us. Finally, we reached the door and my heart raced. Could it really lead to safety? I grabbed the handle and twisted it hard, feeling it yield beneath my grip. The door creaked open, revealing a blinding light that surged from the other side, beckoning us in. With one final look over my shoulder, the shadow lunged, its presence rushing forward, trying to overtake us. It felt as if I was on the precipice of something significant, a line blurred between reality and nightmares. We stepped through together, hand in hand, and in that moment I felt the grip of the shadows shatter. The growl exploded into silence, fading into the distance, as we stumbled out of the basement and into light. It was dawn outside, the pale sun rising to wash away the night's horrors. My heart pounded in my chest, but I felt the warmth of relief mixing with confusion and uncertainty. Our escape felt miraculous, yet as I looked back at the door behind us, a shiver ran down my spine. What had been locked away in that basement? What had we really escaped? I no longer knew what was real, or what had been a mere illusion. And as we stepped away from that haunting place, I realized that I would never fully understand the darkness, nor the figure that sought to claim us. The fear and questions, however, would follow me, lingering like a shadow over my shoulder. "Can we go home?" Ben asked, still clutching my hand, his wide eyes searching mine for reassurance. "Yes," I replied, yet as we walked away, I couldn't help but glance back one last time, knowing that whatever had happened in there would forever remain a question, an unanswered plea floating in the edges of my mind. I moved to a different city after that. Sometimes I wonder if that basement still lingers, if the shadows still linger, waiting for the next unwitting wanderer to return. But mostly, I try not to think about it.